The private sector organization of Jamaica, PSOJ, is calling on the country's political representatives to be responsible in their discourse with their supporters and the general public. This in the wake of what the organization deemed racially dismissive comments made by Minister Everald Warmington at a recent party meeting in relation to opposition leader Mark Golding. In a statement today, the PSOJ said it was disappointed with the utterances by Mr. Warmington as they directly contradict the political code of conduct. The organization said Jamaica cannot expect to positively address its social issues if its leaders display poor judgment in their tone and statements towards each other. PSOJ President Keith Duncan stressed that distasteful and divisive statements from either side of the political fence cannot be condoned or supported.
The PSOJ is disappointed with the recent racially divisive comments made by Minister Everal Warmington. These comments have no place in the Jamaican context, now or in the past, as it is totally inconsistent with our motto, out of many, one people. Our political leaders have a moral responsibility to ensure that we adhere to the code of conduct and, most importantly, provide a good example by setting the tone for a decent, inclusive and harmonious society. We are encouraging both the Prime Minister and the opposition leaders to take the higher ground in the interest of managing the tone of the communication of their political operatives in line with our agreed political code of conduct.
PSOJ President Keith Duncan. Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton said the Auditor General has not indicated any misappropriation of funds earmarked for the management of the COVID-19 pandemic. Instead, he said his understanding is that the AG has questioned whether or not a process was followed with the writing of contracts. The minister was reacting to a report to Parliament from the Auditor General's department, which found that $400 million was paid out by the Health Ministry without proper contracts. Dr. Tufton told reporters in St. Catherine that his team will have a chance to respond to the report at the Public Accounts Committee, PAC.
Chief Accounting Officer, the Permanent Secretary, Dunstan Brand, will have an opportunity with his team to respond to the report. And I think that's the appropriate place to deal with some of the concerns that have been raised in the Auditor General report. So I'm not going to comment with any specifics. Beyond saying, however, that my interpretation of the report is that the Auditor General has not claimed any inappropriate or misappropriation, I should say, of funds. And that's very important to note because, there's always a room for speculation and so on. What the Auditor General spoke to, as I understand it in the report, is the issue of whether or not a process was followed.
The health minister said he met with the team and has read the report himself. He noted that the COVID pandemic was a difficult period and there were many decisions made on the spur of the moment because lives were on the line.
In the case of the hotels and the accommodation, if you recall the context of persons on ships waiting to be taken off and so on. So there are a lot of issues. Now, this is not to excuse away what the report says and learning from those experiences and making things better. But when the time comes at the PAC, I believe the team will provide an appropriate response.
Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton. Jamaica is facing a major housing supply problem due to a lack of readily available lands for development. That's according to Prime Minister Andrew Holness. Speaking at the groundbreaking ceremony for the Howard Apartments housing development in Kingston today, Mr. Holness noted that the demand for houses in Jamaica far exceeds the present supply. He said this has driven up prices in the housing market. While noting that government is working to address the shortage, the Prime Minister noted that there are some challenges.
It's one thing to say everybody must get land and everybody must get house, but it's another thing to actually do it. We have a supply problem in housing. And the real supply issue is that, one, we don't have enough readily available developable land. That's challenge number one. And I have taken some bold steps to get lands into housing. It has not been without its unfair share of criticisms. But we have taken positive steps in that regard to bring land into the housing market.
The Prime Minister said there is also a lack of developers that can take on large-scale projects.
The other shortage factor is that we do not have enough local housing contractors, developers, that can take on housing development at what I like to describe enterprise scale. We need more housing developers who can take on housing estates of in excess of 5,000 units per development. We don't have many of those in Jamaica. There are some other issues as well, but those are the two key ones that we have to address.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness. There is a call for proactive and sustained action to reduce road fatalities. Vice President of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, Paris Lioye, in commenting on data analysis on road crashes in Jamaica, said at the current trend, at least 70 people alive today will die from road crashes by the end of this year. He was speaking at the Red Stripe Town Hall meeting on responsible alcohol consumption and road safety in Kingston today.
Regrettably, data analysis shows that we are on a trajectory of around 460 to 470 fatalities this year. As of this morning, 392 fatalities have been recorded from 340 crashes. That means that there are about 70 people alive right now who will be dead on December 31st. We have to focus on the people who are alive and keep them alive. When you look at 392 people dying so far this year, this means that one person is dying every 19 hours. But what we need to do is to make sure that we are in a position to take proactive and sustained action.
He said every Jamaican is a stakeholder in road safety and that the private and public sectors must continue to work together to form strategies and interventions that will curb the increasing number of road fatalities as well as promote the responsible use of alcohol.
But there are opportunities for the private sector to get involved through knowledge sharing and data-driven investment in projects that can help to alleviate the challenges on our roadways. We do see other private sector entities like the JN Group, Carib Cement, all of these other private sector players are taking an active role in trying to work with the police. This is not only about the police. Every Jamaican is a road safety stakeholder, whether or not you use the road. We are all impacted by improper use of our roadways. Our safety, our productivity, efficiency, and livelihoods are all affected. We cannot become complacent in tackling those issues of alcohol misuse that plague our society. We have a duty to ensure that we engage all stakeholders to raise the consciousness of all Jamaicans to further extend responsible drinking into responsible living. Let us remain focused on playing our roles for the responsible and sustainable use of alcohol across all sectors.
Vice President of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, Paris Lioye. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark has given a commitment to take another look at challenges being experienced by public transport operators in accessing the gas relief grant. This after the issue was again raised by the opposition in Parliament yesterday when the supplementary estimates were tabled. Dr. Clark told the House that the supplementary estimates had allocations for financial support to transport operators amounting to $600 million in gas relief and another $200 million in loans through the Development Bank of Jamaica. Transport operators have long complained that they are not able to get the grant because some are unable to get through the online application process, while others who applied were later told that they were ineligible due to not having a license or having an unverified taxpayer registration number. The opposition raised concern that the take-up for the gas relief was very low due to the challenges faced by taxi operators. Of the over 37,000 operators island-wide, only about 7,000 have gone through the application process. Dr. Clark noted that the funds allocated for the relief have not been used up.
The amount that we have provided has not yet been exhausted. We have had so far 7,000 applications. So if all applications were validated as being eligible, then that would be under 200 million. So we are well short. We have a lot of room for persons to apply. Well, we have proven the process in the sense that during the pandemic, we had, in other words, signing up takes a minute on the phone. and there are only a few pieces of data required: name, TRN, something to do with your registration number, and one or two other variables. It's a process that is auditable, and it's very, very important for programs such as this, and very transparent.
He said the complaint of a problem with the system will be examined.
I will certainly look into it. The figure that I shared with you of 7,000 is the number of applicants. Where the problem will usually arise is applicants who get through. So I'm saying to you, I'm providing information that would support the argument that not a lot of people have applied. And the reason for not applying could be complex, and that's something we'll certainly look into. But when you're dealing with these numbers of persons and there isn't an established paper-based process, having an online process provides assurance to the members of the public that you can account for the expenditure and who gets what. And it's very important that we continue to support online modality. But I will look into it as you suggest.
Meantime, the finance minister said the education ministry has given its assurance that steps are being taken to ensure that teachers who had not received their October salaries will be paid soon. Dr. Clark was responding to questions posed by the opposition in Parliament yesterday about the issue. Last month, several teachers across the country reported that they had not been paid, despite others within the same institution receiving salaries. The Education Ministry has been working to address the matter, with some teachers finally being paid. Dr. Clark pointed out yesterday that the outstanding payments have been drastically reduced to hundreds compared to the thousands of teachers reportedly not paid last month.
What I can say is that the government has made all the financial provisions for all salaries in Jamaica, including teacher salaries. So I just want to make that clear. The matter is being resolved in the Ministry of Education. There might have been some technical issues that could have resulted in that experience, which is very unfortunate. But the matter, the Minister assures me, is being resolved. Definitely agree that for the person who is on the receiving end of that, that's not a good experience. And which is why the government is working assiduously to solve the problem. And I believe the numbers are now down to a few. Yeah, right. In relation to the 26,000. But for each person who has been affected, we are deeply grieved by that.
Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark. The Auditor General has identified several areas of inefficiency and underutilization of the application management and data automation Amanda software by the relevant government ministries and agencies. The AG also expressed concern about some aspects of cybersecurity controls. However, these details were left out of the report submitted to Parliament yesterday for security reasons. The Amanda system was implemented to provide a national system for the management of development applications by the municipal corporations, National Environment and Planning Agency NEPA, and other agencies that comment on building and development applications. Donique Weston reports.
The system, which forms a part of a wider initiative to improve the development approval review process, was expected to enhance efficiency through the control and monitoring of workflows, automation of repetitive tasks, and information sharing among the entities. These improvements would ensure a 90-day response time for building and subdivision applications, reduce bottlenecks within the processes, and create an investment-friendly business environment. The AG commissioned an information technology audit to determine whether the Amanda software had an effective system of IT controls to ensure information security, efficiency, and accurate information processing to meet user requirements and achieve business objectives. The audit revealed that the Amanda application controls were lacking, as key data inputted were not validated to ensure the accuracy and completeness of system records. Applicant details such as name, property address, contact information, and tax registration number, TRN, were captured on a standard application form before being entered in the Amanda software. However, the AG identified several incomplete records, inaccuracies, and inconsistencies with the data inputted. It said the lack of appropriate and adequate application controls enables the municipal corporations and or commenting agencies circumvention of critical due diligence steps in the development approval process. The AG also determined that the Amanda software was not fully utilized in the processing of development applications. Technological and administrative challenges resulted in the manual process being used concurrently. Only 39% of the over 24,000 applications entered were completed in the 90-day period, and of the over 12,000 applications closed in Amanda, 76% were processed within the 90-day target. The AG said the expected outcomes from the system's implementation were not being realized, and that operating a dual system is counterproductive as it introduces inefficiencies which may increase irregularities and or corrupt practices. Additionally, general IT controls related to backup logical access and cybersecurity were designed, but in some instances were inadequate or operated ineffectively. It identified some security vulnerabilities which, if exploited, may result in cyber attacks and unauthorized disclosure of confidential information. Details related to the review of cybersecurity controls were communicated to the respective stakeholders who have commenced corrective measures. The relevant stakeholders are being encouraged to consider the weaknesses identified and implement suitable input controls, strengthen the IT environment and security of the application.
Member of Parliament for St. Catharines, Southern Fitz-Jackson, is urging citizens of Old Brighton and Portmore to use the internet as a tool for improving themselves and their community. Speaking at the launch of the Universal Service Fund's community Wi-Fi, Mr. Jackson noted that students should take advantage of the Wi-Fi to access education virtually.
The realization of this free Wi-Fi access is the vision of former Minister of Energy, Philip Baldwin. Millions of dollars are being spent here. So when it comes to development, we must start from the bottom up. Brayton is one of the oldest communities in Portmore. And generally speaking, it has some of the lower income earning communities in Portmore. I believe it is through education that we break the cycle of poverty. So if your grandparents was poor and your parents was poor, then pick them off to come poor too. And education is the means of breaking that cycle. And so anything that can spiral the growth of education must be given a priority. And so the universal access facility is not just to say it upon the internet, but it's to create an opportunity to strengthen your ability to access education in the virtual space.
He also encouraged adults to use the internet to access options for employment through remote work.
And it is not just for the children. It's for the adults. The world is changing now. A lot of jobs are now online. So adults can able to access job opportunities because you can stay here in Britain and work in the United States, in Britain, in Asia, all over the world you can work. And this is what the Wi-Fi access is affording. It is about empowering everybody. But every single resident of Old Brighton must be the protector and the defender of this facility because it is for your benefit, your interest, your picking them interests, and the future of your family.
Member of Parliament for St. Catharines, Southern Fitz-Jackson.